In this video, we are going to go over a mech which has a mixed history, both as a ringing success and as a failure. Seen in all forces of the Inner Sphere, but beloved by the armed forces of the Federated Suns, the mech we're going to discuss today is the Javelin. A light mech weighing in at 30 tons, the Javelin is a mech from the late Star League era, so late it's almost a Succession Wars design. The Javelin originally was introduced at a time where few understood or knew of its capabilities. It would eventually become a reliable recon mech, particularly used by House Davion. The unit also became a favorite as an ambusher, being used to spring traps on unsuspecting forces during this time, and even was so commonly used in this way it led to the phrase, sneaky as a Javelin. The mech was originally produced in the year 2751 by Stormvanger Assemblies, and it would see production throughout the Succession Wars despite the catastrophic ruination of the First Succession War. The Javelin does have a reputation for being reliable. This is likely due to the simplicity of its design, though there is one noticeable complaint from pilots, which is that the unit can be top-heavy and doesn't have redistributed weight to stop this, which can result in the mech potentially falling over when not piloted with care. This particularly impacts new pilots. All the same, this mech is blooded and tested during the Succession Wars. The Javelin has also taken part in every conflict since then, and would maintain its reputation in most respects. The most common model of the Javelin produced from the era of the Star League through to the end of the Succession Wars is the JVN-10N. This version of the machine is a renowned backstabber, scout, skirmisher, and ambusher. The engine installed into the JVN-10N is the GM-180, weighing in at 7 tons and providing the Javelin with a top speed of 95.9 km per hour, or 9 movement points in the tabletop game. This is sufficient speed for the time it was introduced, though it isn't an outlier in a positive sense. It does possess the ability to jump 180 meters as well, or 6 hexes, granting it significant maneuverability, and helping it put its weapons on target. It's also noteworthy that the Javelin has 10 stock heatsinks. While this is not normally the case, in this instance it ensures that the Javelin, if utilizing its jump jets while consistently firing its weapons, will begin to incur heat problems which can affect the mech's performance. This means mech pilots need to be careful with how aggressively they use the machine, as it does require a conservative approach to piloting it in this regard. For its weight, the JVN-10N is more than adequately armed with 2 sets of SRM-6 tubes, giving it an extremely dangerous scattershot at short ranges, though this is all of its ranged capabilities. With 1 ton of ammunition each, if fired constantly together, these launchers will only have a total of 15 shots for its entire deployment before returning to the depot or mech bay for repair or resupply. This creates a problem for missions that may have longer engagement plans, and makes the Javelin ill-suited for long-term deployments behind enemy lines. For armored protection, the JVN has a barely adequate 4 tons. The reason why this begins to be an issue for the JVN series is while 4 tons is more than respectable for a 20-ton light mech, and a 25-ton such as the Commando can view this level of armor as adequate, the Javelin is a heavier design, coming in at 30 tons overall. It's also an issue as should a critical hit breach the right or left torso, there's a 1 in 3 chance on the first penetration or critical that this mech may suffer a catastrophic ammunition explosion, putting the machine, and potentially the pilot, into an early grave. The JVN-10 is a useful, though imperfect machine, acceptably fast for its weight, and with enhanced maneuverability, it can use these assets along with its powerful close-range punch to disable or destroy lighter targets, or even hinder heavier ones, with a particular flavor for knocking out wounded mechs or enemy tanks. Its deficiencies lay in its underperforming armor protection, coupled with its simply average speed, and further coupled by its ammunition being a liability both as a danger to the mech's survival and being an additional liability for protracted conflicts and deployments. All the same, it's a mech that has earned its place in many units, particularly in the AFFS, at least when used wisely. Javelin itself, due to its simple design, would benefit from the ability to be modified in a variety of production runs, producing different variants of the unit over the course of the fighting which has been raging across the Inner Sphere for 500 years. These are the best 3 examples I have of the changes it has gone through in the centuries that have followed the Succession Wars. The JVN-10F was introduced during the Succession Wars in an attempt to solve several issues with the Javelin, and changing how it would operate in combat. Most notably, it carries 4 diverse optics Type 20 medium lasers, rather than the SRM-6 tubes it carried prior. It also installs additional heat sinks to try to cope with the increased heat output of the 4 lasers, though this is still an issue if the jump jets are utilized along with the laser weaponry. It has the advantage of being able to operate for longer periods of time, even into the days or multiple battles, as well as being more durable in its lack of ammunition to exploit on board. Its drawback is even though the lasers may do almost as much damage as the missiles, they don't scatter in the same way, making its effectiveness against damaged targets or the ability to critical seek not as great. This design, all the same, is a better straight fighter, and a better light hunter, and is the preference of many Javelin pilots during this era. The JVN-10P is the Clan War upgrade package initially introduced. It removed a single SRM-6 and installed instead 2 SRM-2 streaks. It is overall nearly identical to the JVN-10N. On a personal note, I would argue, beyond mildly better distribution of ammunition, that this unit is almost in no way a better counterpart to the 10N, and given the year it was introduced, may be the worst version of this particular Battlemech when taking that into account. To show how diverse the JVN is as a platform, you need look no further than seeing the JVN-11F. This was produced during the Blakist era. It comes equipped with a couple different weapon options, but namely a snub-nose PPC and 6 machine guns set up into 2 machine gun arrays. This change may not adjust it entirely from being a close-range unit, but it does significantly more damage output, even if it is somewhat range-locked by the machine guns. But it also benefits from the longer range and harder punch of the snub-nose PPC. This is a very innovative skirmisher, and is one of the latest generation models of the vehicle. The Javelin's strengths are many, and are arrayed across several configurations. It is fast enough to do its job for the most part. It carries a devastating array of close-range weapons, which can destroy other lights, or destroy ill-prepared targets such as tanks, support mechs, or damage assets. Though not perfect, its strengths have endeared it to many of the warriors who have piloted it. Its weaknesses, however, can be considered abundant. Principally, its armor protection is significantly lacking in many respects, and many versions of this mech carries a not insubstantial amount of ammunition. Despite its other capabilities, very quickly the Javelin can be turned into a heap of molten metal by things as obscure as a single lucky PPC shot. Also, despite its speed being acceptable, it's not outrageous, and this means it may not be able to use its speed as the perfect suit of armor it may need when approaching some targets. A workhorse of a light mech, and not one without some controversy, the Javelin is a mech not to be underestimated on the battlefield. It has survived and been used for 500 years because of its powerful abilities and the characteristics to adjust the design with time to make it more capable. It is simplicity embodied into a mech that is easy to operate, build, and maintain. The Javelin has earned its reputation, even if it's not a spotless one. Because hey, maybe the Javelin and its pilots prefer to burn out rather than fade away. Thank you for joining me here today. If you enjoyed this video, please consider liking it and subscribing to the channel. With that, I will catch you in the comment section below.